Okay, all right. Shabbat shalom. We are back. We today are going to be continuing on with our triennial Torah portion. We're going to be looking at Exodus chapter 4. Last week, we dealt with the beginning of the encounter between Moshe and the Almighty with the burning bush. Chapter 4 is the continuation of what was going on with the Most High sending Moses back to Egypt as the deliverer. So we want to continue on with the story here and see what and learn from the situation as it unfolds. We want to I think we'll begin just by reading. We'll go through. I guess we'll go through a little bit at a time here. Let me pull up the verses here. Let's read. Let's see here. Let's read down to verse. Let's see. 9. Let's go from verse 1 down through verse 9.
Okay. Exodus chapter 4. And Moshe answered and said, if they do not believe me, nor listen to my voice, and said, Yahweh has not appeared to you. And Yahweh said to them, what is that in your hand? And he said, a rod. And he said, throw it on the ground. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moshe fled from it. And Yahweh said to Moshe, reach out your hand and seize it by the tail. So he reached out his hand and took hold of it, and it became a rod in his hand. So that they that believe that Yahweh Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzchak, the Elohim of Jacob, has appeared to you. And Yahweh said to him again, now put your hand in your bosom. And he put his hand in his bosom. And when he took it out, and see, his hand was leprous like snow. And he said, put your hand in your bosom again. So he put his hand in his bosom again and drew it out of his bosom. And see, it was restored like his other flesh. And it shall be, if they do not believe you, nor listen to the voice of the first sign, they shall believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall be, if they do not believe even these two signs, or listen to your voice, that you shall take water from the river and pour it on dry land, and the water which you take from the river shall become blood on the dry land.
Okay, very good. So let's see over here some interesting things as we go through these first few verses here, because when we look at this, we see that Moshe, he's speaking with the Most High still, and he says in the first verse over there, and if they do not believe me, if they do not believe me. So after we look and we see that Moshe got to the place of understanding that he was dealing with the Almighty, he needed to go now and relay this information to the people, right? So whatever it was that got him to believe, they weren't going to see a burning bush, right? They weren't going to see a bush that was burning, that wasn't being consumed. They weren't going to see that. So he had to go back to a people who, for the most part, at least as far as the accounts that we have accounts of the forefathers having appearances with the Most High, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But it's almost as if there's kind of a pause in all of that between, you know, Jacob or even Joseph and now. The scripture doesn't tell us about what happened with any people between Joseph and Moses. So it very well could be that there's kind of the people knew of the Most High, because they were, we see through the midwives that they were even able to have a faith in the Most High. But in terms of having these appearances and the Most High showing Himself to individuals, we don't have any record of that in the scriptures. And so when we look at what's going on here, we see that it takes this great occurrence to happen for Moses to know what it is that he is getting ready to do. But that same thing now has to be relayed to the people who all they're hearing or seeing is this man and what he said happened. And so when we look at here, we can see a great importance and emphasis, I would say, on the idea of believing, because we see examples of how Moshe, it seems as if he is able to get to the place of believing, but he needs to cause for the people that he's going to go speak to, Israel, that's over there in bondage in Egypt. He needs to be able to relay this message and facilitate believing in the people over there. And so when we think about this idea of believing, a lot of times we think about this kind of as like a kind of a quote unquote New Testament thing where all you have to do is believe. That's we have all these scriptures in the apostolic writings about the apostles and Yeshua and Paul speaking about believing. And so when we hear this message about from the mainstream Christian world, all you have to do is believe. We actually see this idea back in the Tanakh. It's not something that was constructed in the so-called New Testament, but it's something that we see throughout the Tanakh, as well as in the apostolic writings. This idea of believing and this being this thing that's crucial to moving forward. So when we look over here, let's look at this. Let's see here. Let me pull this up over here. This word. Let me get our tools. So Moses says they will not behold, they will not believe me. Some versions say if they do not believe me. But that word there is aman, which means to build up, to support, to foster as a parent or nurse. Foster, actually, this word foster means to nourish or to bring nourishment. We think about, at least me, I think about a foster parent. To me, I thought it was like a replacement parent. I mean, I guess technically that's what a foster parent is, but the word foster literally means to nourish. And so when we look at this word aman, where it says to foster as a parent or nurse, figuratively to be firm or faithful, we also see the idea of assurance, and steadfastness, right? And so when we look at this word over here, what is necessary for what Moses is talking about, however, when we think about this idea of believing, I've said this before, it's not an idea of having this kind of a mental kind of a thing in your mind that's going on. Belief, we think about belief kind of in this kind of an abstract kind of a way, where it's like something that you just have kind of in your mind. But as we look at these words over here, we see the idea of firmness, right? Of steadfastness in this idea to build up something that is supported. When we think about this idea of foster as a parent, we're always about the business of taking care of our children. It's a continual process that we go through with, getting food and comfort and all of these things that's needed, that's necessary for them to be built up. It's a continual process. So we think about the idea of the stability that is provided by a parent to a baby. That process and that kind of continuity is something that helps us to understand what this believing is, what this real faith is, right? It's a thing that continues. If we look, Hisky, where's that little whiteboard at? Bring me the whiteboard over there. Yeah, let me see that thing real quick. Yeah, baby. Okay, very good. So we look at this word in the ancient Hebrew. We see the Aleph, which is a ox's head. And the ox's head gives you the idea of strength or power, right? And so you have strength and power. And then you have the mem, which is water, which gives you the idea of might. So we have strength and power and might, and the noon, which is the sprouted seed, which a seed planted continues on with life, right? So you have the continuation of the thing that planted. So if we got strength, this is back. Look at this back.
Yeah. Right.
We got strength and power and might, and we have that being continued. That's the idea that we see with Aman. So you have the continuance of might and strength, right? Which again, we look and see. Warner. We see over here this again, this idea of firmness. That's the picture that we see, right? Something that's been supported, something that's firm and not wishy-washy, right? And so it's interesting that we see with Moshe that he was persuaded or convinced on the last chapter with the things that he has saw, but it seems as if when we look over here with Moshe, when he asked this question, if they do not believe, it seems as if this on his part is a little bit of doubting, because if we go back, let's see. If we go back to the last chapter, what's that verse 18 say right there?
It says, and they shall listen to your voice, and you shall come, you and the elders of Israel, to the sovereign of Mitzrayim, and you shall say to him, Yahweh Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us. And now, please let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness to slaughter to Yahweh our Elohim.
Okay, so the Most High already said to Moses that he's going to go down there and they shall listen to your voice. They shall hearken to your voice. They shall shema. They shall hear intelligently with obedience to your voice. And so the Most High already told them that they was going to believe. They was going to listen, hearken to his voice. He told Moshe that the first thing that he said to them. And so when we look and see now, if he said that already, and then we have over here in the very next chapter him saying, what if they don't believe? Then he might as well be saying, what if you don't aren't what if you aren't telling me what's going to happen? Right? What if you don't know what it is that you're talking about? What if you're incorrect? And so when we look over here, we can't chalk this up as anything else other than doubt on Moshe's part. And so it seems as if there needs to be, it's not just about him getting this thing to persuade the people, but it's almost as if he needs a little more persuading because there seems to be some doubt that's going on. This can be, I would say, a human, it's a totally human thing that's going on with Moses. We look at Moshe and understanding who he is and who he became. Sometimes we look at these people, these characters, and think about them as like superheroes with superpowers. And, you know, if they become that, they came from something. And so, we see, if you've read the Torah already, what Moses becomes. But these over here, when we're looking at these, this is him getting started. This is the Most High first, interactions with him and showing his face to him. And so when we see these examples of examples of doubt and faithlessness, it kind of just humanizes Moses.
It's like they're starting a relationship. It's just developing a relationship to be like, I heard what you said, but
yeah.
From what I know, because you gotta think like you said, humanizing it. Humans got their own experience, so we know how we act. Mm-hmm. So he's like, I'm just saying, can't just go tell them that, So yeah. It's like, what if they say, I'm going to the king of Egypt or whatever? So I can understand that.
Yeah, and so when we look at this, we see that it helps us understand the idea of firmness and what is required in terms of faith. When we say we have faith, again, the idea is not kind of wavering back and forth. It's not about flip flopping. One time you're strong and one time you're weak. But again, this idea of firmness, and this is a thing that actually the Most High is looking for. But if we look over in, let me pull this up here. Let's look at this verse here. What is this? 4. Let's look at 4 and 14 till 16.
Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Yeshua, son of Elohim, let us hold fast our confessions. For we do not have a high priest unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who was tried in all respects as we are, apart from sin. Therefore, let us come boldly to the throne of favor in order to receive compassion and find favor for timely help.
Okay, so we have access to timely help, right? And this is the thing that Moses, at this point in the situation, didn't have a full grasp of. It seems as if the Most High is sending him on this mission, but it's not as if the Most High is sending him on this mission alone, right? And just like Moses, we also through Yeshua have access to timely help, right? Empowerment to remain firm, right? It's known that we have weaknesses, right? It says, for we do not have a high priest unable to sympathize with our weaknesses. He understands that we have weaknesses, right? Because he lived in the flesh. But it says in 16, in spite of all of that, let us come boldly to the throne of favor in order to receive compassion and find favor for timely help. Right? So we have weaknesses, but we also have the ability to be able to go before the Most High and request help to get us through these things, right? Because he starts out saying, let us hold fast our confession. Let us be firm in our confessions, right? And so we have the ability, even though we the flesh is weak, we have the ability to and the access to timely help. And so when we look over here, the Most High is trying to get Moses to understand that he is going to be there for him and with him as he goes. And we'll see once he goes, he's in it. But just kind of getting that, it's just kind of like if you watch one of those movies, it seems like the car don't never start whenever they're trying to get away. Like it's always that, you know what I mean? Just at the beginning, once he gets going, right, he's gone. But again, just like we was looking at before, we see just the way that this process begins and also the things that's necessary for the process to begin, again being faith and being steadfastness and firmness, and being able to remember who it is that is empowering us to move forward. It's the creator and sustainer of all things, right? And so the Most High, being merciful and compassionate, he gives Moses this reassurance for both himself and the people by way of these signs that he does before Moses, and that he'll do for the people. Now it's interesting that we see him do these things. He's like Moses sees them himself, and so when he goes before the people, he just kind of redoes the thing that he saw already. So again, it's not as if he is removed from this kind of faith building exercises. It's for him as well, right? He has to also see these things happen to kind of increase his situation so that he can go and be prepared to go and increase the faith of the people. So I wanted to look at these things a little bit. When we look at these things that he does, and their potential for having any type of symbolic significance is connected with them. Let's go back over to Exodus chapter 4. And so the first thing was, let's see, in verse 2, where he asked him, what is in your hand? Not as if to say that the Most High didn't know what he was holding. Right? Right? We can't look at that and see that the Most High is asking Moses a question as if he didn't know what was in his hand. Right? It's obvious that he says these words right here. What is that in your hand? But we're not to think that because we see this question here that he didn't know something. He's simply calling this rod to the attention of Moses, right? The Most High is not, you can't hide something from the Almighty. It's not as if he don't know, right? We're looking at this and he's calling this thing to the attention of Moses. And then he tells him, go ahead and throw it on the ground and it becomes a serpent. Right? And then he reaches out and he grabs it and then turns back into a rod again. Right? We see this little thing that's going on with this rod and this serpent. Right? And so when we think about this now, when we think about the rod, especially the rod in the way in which that it was used with Moses here, this was his shepherd staff, right? This was his rod that he used to lead and guide his flocks and his sheep. And so when we look at the rod, it gives you the idea of strength and leadership, right? And leading and guiding in general, right? And so when we look at the symbolism that exists in the rod itself, we can see again the idea of leadership, right? And so he turns the staff into a serpent, which is also something that's interesting. We're looking at Exodus chapter 4. So he turns the staff into this cunning animal, right? This wise serpent. Now, we think about the serpent and we automatically think about, I'm saying we, like I have the same mind as everyone in the world. When I think about the serpent, I always think about, for whatever reason, Hasatan, right? And it's interesting because when we think about Hasatan as the serpent, if we go back in time, we see the scriptures don't translate this word serpent. They just leave it at nakash, which is actually the same word that we have in Exodus chapter 4 and verse 2. But it says that it's more crafty than all the lives of the field. Crafty. Let me see what that is here. Subtle. Cunning, crafty, prudent. right? All things that we could think of in terms of being wise, right? Having abilities to be able to when we think about something that's cunning, wisdom, wisdom is involved in that situation. Being able to use um, the right uh, use of knowledge is what wisdom is, right? And so you're able to take things and do, um, great things with the tools and things that you have. And so again, we look back at at Exodus. He uses that he could have turned that staff into anything. So I think first of all, the idea, first of all, that you have this dead staff is just a branch that's dead. He turns it into a live, a living thing, which is amazing in and of itself, right? If we look forward, the same kind of a thing happened whenever the people were talking about should Aaron be the one who's leading, and then his staff again becomes alive and buds, this dead branch that probably been dead for however many years, just automatically comes alive and starts to bud little branches and fruits come off of it, right? And so we see the same thing over here with Moses and his staff, except instead of just remaining a staff and coming alive, it turns into a whole serpent. But again, when I think that there's many reasons that we could look at this and see with this whole idea of the staff turning into a serpent. But for me, I feel like it's giving you the idea of this cunningness, this craftiness, this wisdom, um, then coupled with the idea. So you have the rod, which giving you the idea of the leadership and the strength and the leadership, and then you have the serpent that's giving you the idea of the cunningness, right, and the wisdom. And then also you see that Moses has control over the the um the serpent, right? Because he just reached down and he grabs the thing and he controls it and it turns back into a staff. And so we could think about this a few different ways. When we think about, if we go back again to Genesis, when we think about the idea of this subtle beast, um, the same thing, that exists inside of Nachash, this subtlety, this this Arum thing that gives Nakash the ability to go and be sneaky and formulate this plan that he has to kind of seduce and and tempt the woman. If we go back, to chapter 2, I believe it's the last verse, where it says they were both naked. What's this word here? Oh, this is it here. So they were both naked, man and his wife, and they were not ashamed. This word here is like the same word as the characteristics of the Nakash, which is the cunningness, which is the craftiness that existed. So there was something that existed within these people, Adam and Hava, at this point, pre-fall, something that existed in their humanity that we see in the next chapter with Nakash, that he took that, whatever this our room thing is, and used this knowledge and information and wisdom that he had to formulate these diabolical things to tempt Adam and Hava into, eating the apple and being disobedient. I said the apple, the fruit, and being disobedient to the Most High. And over here, these Adam and Hava have that thing embedded in them. So it's something that we could look at and connect with just carnality, right? It's something that we could just connect with just the bare the essence of being a carnal being. But again, we look forward back into Exodus chapter 4. Again, Moses is able to have control over these things, right? He has control over the serpent, right? He lays it down, becomes a serpent, he reaches his hand down and he grabs it, and it goes back to a serpent. So we could think about the idea of Moses being having control over those things which would be a tempter to him, or things that would be contrary to the Almighty, showing a power that the Most High is giving to Moses, where there's going to be situations where carnality may seem as if it's a formidable foe against him, but the Most High is giving him power and control over this carnality, right? And so we can look at this not only as just being kind of just like this magic trick that's happening, but this miraculous thing that's happening that can also give us some insight into have some spiritual significance to it. Like, why is it a serpent? What does that even, like, why though, right? And so again, we see a sign that the Most High gives Moses is this ability to have control over temptation, right? And because he's getting ready to go into the situation where there's going to be times and situations where his faith, Moses' faith, is tested, right? Where he does all of these things, and the result is not coming to pass, right? And so he has to know, he has to be sure, that is Moses, he has to be sure that he's going to be firm and remain firm in this whole situation, right? And so this first sign over here, I'm saying that we could look at this and see kind of a hinting towards this idea of having control over the tempter. Okay, so the next one was, let's see, the next sign was in verse 4, right? Where he reaches his hand in, oh, wait, not verse 4, verse 6, right? Where he puts his hand in his bosom and he pulls it out and he is leprous, like snow, right? He got a regular hand. He puts it in his bosom, not like he sticks it in his stomach, but it's like his little cloak or something, right? And he pulls it out, and he is now white for some reason, right? And then he puts his hand back in there, and it comes out regular again, right? And so when we look over here with this thing that's going on with this whole idea of this second sign, we see that Moses, first of all, we see this Moses's hand, right? He's working with his hand. We think about the Most High and knowing, as we do, that the Most High delivered Israel with a mighty hand, and right. And so this second sign that the Most High gives to Moshe is this thing that has to do with his hand, with the thing that does the work, with the thing that exemplifies strength, right? His hand goes into this place of hiding, or this place where you're not able to see it anymore, right? And then it comes out, and then it's like this defiled thing, right? And so again, on the surface, this is just a sign. It's just a miraculous thing that Moses is going to do. Here, watch this. Put his hand in here. Whoa, it's wow, like how did that happen? Right? But it's not just for nothing, right? We could think about these things and see kind of these different kind of significances. Like when you think about the fact that the idea later on in the chapter talks about Israel as being the firstborn of the Most High. We think about the idea of the right hand being that position of strength and honor. And then so we could think about Israel as a people who were the right hand of the Most High. They were these people that was in the position of strength and honor in relation to the other people who go into this place of hiding in Egypt, in this place where they're not able to be seen, right? This other place, right? And then the state that they're in as a result of being in this place is really a place of defilement, right? And separation from the Most High. We talked about this a little bit last week. If we say that the Most High is going to come and deliver Israel from Egypt, then Israel must already be in the control of Egypt. And then also, that is to say that they're not being controlled by the Most High, because they're being controlled by Egypt. Egypt at this time, Misraim is at this time the controllers of Israel. And so even to say that they need to be redeemed or bought back, they have another owner at this time, which is Egypt, which they have to go in. Moses, that's what this whole thing is about. Moses is going in to rescue the people. And right, so at this time, Israel is in a state of defilement, just like being this leprous people. But that doesn't change the fact that the Most High wants to deal with Israel and also heal and redeem Israel, but he has to actually do all of these things, right? And so when we look at this thing that's going on with Moses and the sticking his hand in his bosom and pulling it out and it being this leprous, defiled, unclean thing, at the same time we can see that it kind of gives us a picture of Israel as a whole. But then what happens, right? He puts it back in there. Then when he pulls it back out again, it's whole. His hand's been made whole. And so we also see the idea of the purification of the hand, and all of this being done through the person Moses, right? And so I just thought it was interesting. We look at this kind of the imagery that exists when we look with verse 6 and 7, with this whole idea of his hand becoming this defiled thing and then him taking it out, again, and it being this clean thing. And the same way we look with Israel down the line. Now at this point, this is the beginning, but Israel, makes it out. Spoiler alert, Israel makes it out of Egypt, right? But again, we look at this sign that was given. It kind of gives you kind of this picture of this withered, diseased hand that becomes restored in the end, right? As it says in verse 7, right? Where it says he drew it out of his bosom and see it was restored like his other flesh. And again, we're talking about Moses, who supposedly was already convinced after he saw the burning bush. But again, we look over here, the Most High has given him these signs first to him, that he's able to go back and show these signs to Israel when he goes over there. And so again, these things that's going on are dual purpose. They're for Moses first, because we saw, like we said earlier, we saw some examples of some doubt kind of being present in his situation. And so we can see where these things are both for Moses and for Israel when he goes and shows Israel these signs, right? Okay, so if we keep on going down, verse, 8 says, it shall be if they do not believe you now, after you done seen these two signs, because again, belief is the destination. That's where they trying to get to, is the idea of believing, right? The idea of getting to that place of aman, or firmness, right? Or strength, or a strong and mighty continuance, right? They're trying to get to that place. So if they go through these other two things and they haven't reached the place of strong and mighty continuance, right? Or strong and mighty continuance. If they haven't got to that place of strong and mighty continuance, by the time they see these other two signs, then he said in verse 9, did we read 9? Yeah, we read up to 9. Then he was going to take some water from the river and turn it into blood. Now, just on the surface, I don't know why turning water into blood is more fantastical than turning a rod into a snake, or your hand becoming leprous. But when you think about it from this Egyptian standpoint, the Nile, the river was everything for those people, right? The river was everything. It was the source of life and commerce, and everything was built around this river. And so if you was able to take now some water from this river and then pour it on a dry land and then transform that thing into something else, then you must be mightier than the river, or the god of the, they had so many gods. You must be mightier than that thing if you're able to take this thing that sustains us, and you're able to change it. And so again, on the surface, it seems like it's not so different than the other things. But when you think about it again from the standpoint of the Egyptians, this river was everything, right? And so the final straw was saying that Moses and the God that he represents has power over that which got power over Egypt, which is pretty powerful, right? Moses showing that he is able to exhibit power over the thing that sustains life in Egypt, which again being the river. And so this, for them, is the probably the greatest exhibit of power and strength, again from an Egyptian standpoint. And you dealing with Israel, but for all intents and purposes, they're Israelite Egyptians. Right? Just like some African Americans, right? They Israelite Egyptians, right? They're over there, right? They are possessed by Egypt. And so they have an understanding of where they come from and who their people are, and who the God of their people is. But at this point, they don't know him like that, right? They just know kind of him. Okay, so let's keep on reading over here. Let's see. Let's go. Let's see here. Let's read 10 through 12.
Moshe said to Yahweh, "O Yahweh, I am not a man of words, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, for I am slow of speech and slow of tongue." And Yahweh said to him, "Who has made man's mouth, or who makes dumb, or deaf, or seeing, or blind? Is it not I, Yahweh?" To 12.
Yeah, 12.
It says, "And now go, and I shall be with your mouth and teach you what I say." Or what to say.
Okay, so we see now again, if we didn't think that Moses had some doubt before, it seems as if now we're seeing more proof that there is doubt involved, because now he's saying, I can't talk like that. I'm not a man of words, right? I'm slow of speech and slow of tongue. Words are heavy in my mouth. I can't really formulate words, right? It's hard for me, and not alone formulating them, but delivering them as well. right? He's slow of speech and tongue. That's what he's saying. He's not able to do it. You want me to sit up here and go over here and talk to the ruler of Egypt and speak um to the elders of Israel and convince them that you're sending me over here to do this and that, and I'm just not even. I can't even. I'm not able to do it. That's what he's saying, right? And I think that when we look at this, it's beyond humility, right? We talked about that a little bit last week. It's beyond humility, and again, it's kind of teetering in this realm of faithlessness. And this is where we started off at the beginning, right? If they do not believe, he's saying they, but he's included in that. And so when we look over here now, he done got these signs that he's able to show to the people, and then now he's saying, well, I can't even say anything. I can't even be the one that does this, right? Um, and so the Most High, he says over here, let's see, we're read 13 and 14 actually.
But he said, "O Yahweh, please send by the hand of him whom you would send." And the displeasure of Yahweh burned against Moshe. And he said, "Is not Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he speaks well. And see, he is also coming out to meet you. And when he sees you, he shall be glad in his heart."
So the Most High, he's upset about this, right? It says the displeasure of Yahweh burned, right? He's getting mad. I done sat up here and I did all of this stuff over here. I'm telling you, first of all, I told you that they was going to listen to you when you go over there. I told you already that your proof was going to be that that I was going to do all this stuff when you're on the back end, when you're coming out. You're going to see that I was able to do it after it's done already. He said that already. And now from there, he gets to this place of they might not believe you. I don't believe you because you said that they was going to believe me. And then I'm asking you, what if they don't believe me? And then also now, I'm not even a good talker, so I can't even say nothing in the first place. And so the Most High, being who he is, says, okay, fine. You want to sit up here and be like this. It just so happens that your brother, who is somebody who speaks well, is on his way. Right? Not go and find him somewhere, but he's coming already. You'll see him. He's coming. And when he get here, you just let him know what I said, and go ahead and do the thing. Right? And so we sit up here and we try to make excuses about why we're not going to do what it is that the Most High has for us to do. And meanwhile, while these things are coming out of our mouths, reasons why we shouldn't be making excuses is going on and in play already. Aaron had to already be where he was at, decide to leave, and be on his way somewhere before Moses could even come out of his mouth and say that I'm not able to do it. Right? But in the plan of the Most High, all of these things are working together, and he don't even know. Moses don't even know that these things is going on. Oh yeah, by the way, you want to sit up and act like you can't talk so much. Your brother, he's on his way. He's coming. He can talk for you. Done deal. Right? And so again, we're able to look over here and even see, because these are all the things that we do when when you get to the place of being able to hear from the Almighty, and he said it, but still you sitting up here trying to make excuses about why you're not able to do it, or trying to set all of these things up that need to be done first before you could do the thing that you already know that the Most High said that you're supposed to be doing. Sometimes he'll let you go through all of that stuff. Right? But over here, he's like, nah, you're not gonna sit up here and give me no excuses, right? We got the antidote for this already, right? And so, we have to be able to, and again, when we look over here, thinking about the idea of faith and believing, faith is about on the job training, right? It's not about learn everything that you can learn and be ready and then go ahead and do it. It's about you go out there and get in the fight, and then while you fighting, you'll learn how to fight. It ain't about sitting up there and doing all of this training and all of this stuff and figuring out becoming an expert first and then going. That's not what happened with Moses. He got pushed out in the fight. He learned how to fight while he was out there fighting. Right? Because that's what faith requires. And so we see over here with this inability for Moses to be somebody who, because him being like strong in faith would have just been like, we've been able to skip chapter 4 and just go to the next chapter 5, because we seen in the last chapter where he seen the burning bush. That's it. Just go. That's what he said. Do. I'm on it. Right. That's faith right there. But we see that he's kind of lacking in faith. But the answer to his lack of faith is just go ahead out there. Just get out there and do it. Right. So the answer to his lack of faith is putting him in a situation where he's required to have faith. Because he could have went a step further and said, well, I don't even hardly even know my brother like that. You want to sit up here and I don't know what he been up to all this time whenever, you know what I mean? I don't know what he could have had some other things, right? But, but again, we see that's part of the process. The Most High sees that we have this need, this area that needs to be strengthened, and in order to strengthen it, he puts us in a situation where we have to use our weak muscle so that it could be made strong. And so that's a perfect example of that when we see what's going on with Moses, where he's obviously in a situation where he is unsure, to say the least, about what's going to happen and how all this stuff is going to play out. But again, like we saw before, the cries of the people that reached up to the Most High, and now it's about action. And so it's time for him to go and do what needs to be done. And the Most High is like, this is it. You got to go over here and do it. And so again, we have to learn from these things over here and think about, you know, again, it's not about not about situations where there's unsurety as to whether the Most High said this or that. But over here, if we can say that the Most High said XYZ in your situation, then at that point, there's no excuse for you not to just go and be doing that thing. It's one thing to not have an understanding of what's being said to you, where he clearly does have that understanding. He knows. And so from that perspective, in terms of knowing that the Most High said you need to be doing X, Y, Z, this is a clear example of how, we can be making excuses for not doing those things. You can save the excuses for the things that you're not sure that he said. You can use them for over there, maybe. But the things that you know that he said, right, you can't use no excuses for that, right? Because he said he's going to prepare. It's not even like he got to think about it. It don't matter that he's not good at formulating that words is heavy in his mouth and heavy on his tongue. Because the Most High said he's going to say what to say. I'm going to tell you what to say. All you got to do is say what I say to say. And so, that's another thing that I think that, that is important to be able to get to the place of being able to trust in the Most High. Because if you just gonna say this, you go over there, the task is go, and when you get there, say what I tell you. I guess that's another exercise in faith right there, because it's not like you know what you got to say and then you go say what you got to say. You know that the Most High gonna be with you when you go, and then when you get there, he gonna tell you something, and that's what you're gonna say, right? And so it's like a big lesson on faith and continuing in faith, because continuing is faith. As soon as you stop continuing, that's not faith anymore, right? That's where it stops at. And so again, we think about the idea of believing. We looked at our Hebrew word over here, aman. The thing that ties everything together is the continuance, the sprouted seed, that piece that just keeps on going. It keeps the strength and the mightiness going. It's firm. It's not wishy-washy. It's steadfast, right? It's not back and forthness. There's a little bit of back and forthness over here when we look at Moses. There's a little back and forthness, right? It goes from the people may not believe. You told me they was going to believe, but I still got questions about whether they will or not. And then it went from that into his shortcomings, the things that he wasn't able to do. And then the Most High said, well, it don't matter if you can't do this or that, because I'll not only will I give you a mouthpiece in your brother, I'll tell you what to say to him, and then he could go say it, right? He makes all of the things perfect for his situation. And he's more than able to do those same things for us in our lives, right? If the Most High says for us to do this or that, he's going to make a way for that to happen, even though we in our own self can't see what that necessarily is. Just like Moses couldn't see. He couldn't see how he was going to be the one to go over there and be a deliverer to a people from this nation who's the mightiest nation in the world. He didn't see the how we're going to play out. But even though he didn't see how it was going to play out, he still had to go and walk through the process. And again, this is our example, is that we don't have to know how the thing's going to play out. But what we do have to know, is that the Most High will be there with us and he'll help us through the situation. Just like he said over there. Did we read 16? What we read down to? No, read 13 down to 16. Hold on. Let me get back. Did we read 16 already?
No, we read 14.
Okay, read. Okay, 15 and 16.
It says, "You shall speak to him and put words in his mouth, and I am with your mouth and with his mouth, and I shall teach you what to do. And he shall speak for you to the people, and it shall be that he shall be the mouth for you, and you shall be an Elohim for him."
Okay, so when we look at this thing that's going on from a practical perspective with Moses and Aaron and the Most High, we also see a picture of how the Ruach HaKodesh works for us, in our lives. And so when we think about the role of the Spirit in us, right, is to cause us to walk in His ways, not necessarily to even always know His ways like that. But the Spirit will cause you to, if you're able to listen to the Spirit and hear the voice of the Spirit, he'll show you what to do, right? Just like we see example for us with Moses and getting ready to be with his brother Aaron, is where he really just sends him out on a mission and tells him, I'm going to put the words in your mouth. I'm going to tell you what it is that you need to say and do. And it's just up to you to go ahead out here and do it. So again, even in that, he's really still just testing the faith of Moses and letting it be known that, I am going to be there with you and for you. I'm going to, make I'm going to help you to be able to do all of the things that you need to do in order to get this job done. I don't know why he just wrote on the window. Okay, so all right. So as we keep going down over here, let's see. It's a beginning. It's about to transition into some other things. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions or comments about any of those things we read from all the way down to verse 16 over there?
I thought it was just interesting that he didn't use the leprosy as one of the signs. You know what I mean? Like, when he went into Egypt, it wasn't like, he ever pulled that out.
uh,
Why do you think that was like?
things, and then he never revealed that card. I don't know. He didn't ever pull that out. Huh? Maybe maybe it was. Maybe that helps you to see that it was really more for him than it was for them in the first place. Because you know, again, when you look at those verses, it's really clear to see that there's something that's going on with Moshe, you know, to get him going, and then the Most High, he's just gonna go along with with, with the thing, right? Yeah, he gets right down to the other stuff. He does a thing with the snakes, and the blood thing is one of the plagues. It goes from being like just a show where he takes the water out and just does this little show of power into just an utter destruction of the thing if you turn the whole, you know, all the water into blood, right? And so it kind of gets multiplied, I guess you could say. Um, okay, so let's see here. Let's read 17 down to 21.
And take this rod in your hand, which you shall do, the signs. Then Moshe went and returned together his father-in-law and said to him, "Please let me go and return to my brothers who are in Mizraim to see whether they are still alive." And Yeshua said to Moshe, "Go in peace." And Yahweh said to Moshe in Midian, "Go, return to Mizraim, for all the men are dead who sought your life." So Moshe took his wife and his sons and set them on a donkey and returned to the land of Mizraim. And Moshe took the rod of Elohim in his hand. And Yahweh said to Moshe, "As you go back to Mizraim, see that you do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I put in your hand. But I am going to strengthen his heart so that he does not let the people go."
Um. Okay, so all right, so we see over here now. We look down at verse, let's see, 20. Now this rod that he has now it's like it got a name now, right? It's the rod of Elohim. When it was just like this little stick that he had, this little his staff that he was using for shepherding. Now it's got a purpose. It's the rod of Elohim that he has in his hand. It just got repurposed, right? For him to go out and do this thing. I wanted to talk about this verse 21 a little bit. When we look over here and we see verse 21, where I don't know how this helps Moses at all to know where he says to him that he's going to go back and say all the things and do all the wonders to Pharaoh, but I'm going to strengthen his heart so that he does not let the people go. He was already in a place where he wasn't sure about what he was getting into. There was doubt in the situation for sure. And then to know that I'm going to go down here, I'm going to do all this stuff that you said, and then it says that I'm going to strengthen his heart so that he does not let the people go. It's not going to work at first. Which is interesting because why do it gotta be like this? Like why if I'm already at the place where I'm concerned to say the least about what's going to happen, now I get this news about this kind of unfavorable situation that's happening in terms of him not letting the people go, with this idea of the hardening or the strengthening of Pharaoh's heart. So, when I think about this idea over here of the strengthening of his heart or the hardening of his heart, um, I always think about the fact that when we think about, how, our choosing, when we look at different verses, help us to see that our choosing is based on foreknowledge. We look at predestination, the fact that the Most High chose us. He chose us based on foreknowledge, like what it says in Romans chapter 8 and 20. Let me see. What verse is it? Verse 28 and 29.
It says we know that all matters work together for the good to those who love Elohim, to those who are called according to his purpose, because those who he not knew beforehand, he also ordained beforehand to be conformed to the likeness of his son, for him to be his firstborn among many brothers.
Okay, so when we look at those who he chose, it says that he knew beforehand, because those whom he knew beforehand, he ordained those ones to be conformed to the likeness of his son. So the choosing of the chosen is based on the foreknowledge of the chosen. But I don't know why the same can be said about those who's not chosen. If those who's not chosen are not chosen because he beforehand knows, what they will or will not do, it seems as if the choosing or the not choosing is both based on the Most High's knowledge of what you would or would not do. In other words, if somebody who the Most High looks and sees and knows that he is not going to uh, follow after the Most High, then he's not going to be chosen. Based on the fact that I know that he's not going to choose, or the one who is going to choose, I know that he will choose, so therefore I'll choose him. But in either case, we're not talking about Most High making somebody choose. He's choosing them based on the fact that he knows that they would choose. And so when I think about the idea of Pharaoh and the hardening of his heart, it causes me to think about, like, what is that talking about? How is it that the Most High is will strengthen the heart of Pharaoh? What verse was that? 21. How is it that the Most High would strengthen his heart? Or you could say, if you're thinking about it in that way, cause his heart to be strengthened or hardened so that he would do this or that. That don't seem like it's the same situation that we think about with the idea of choosing the chosen based on foreknowledge, or choosing the chosen based on how he knows that they would choose. That seemed like he just would make somebody choose or not choose. And I'm just going to take this one and say, I'll just make him be the bad guy, and I'll make this one be the good guy. And
Yeah.
and we can go from there. But my take on the situation is that when we think about verses like Isaiah and 45, Isaiah 45 and 7. What's that say right there?
Forming the
Wait,
light.
read. Let's read up some. Start at verse 5. And
Because I am now like there is none else. There is none Elohim beside me. I gird you, though you have not known me, so that they know me from the rising of the sun to the setting, that there is none but me. I am Yahweh, and there is none else. Forming the light and creating darkness, making peace and creating evil. I Yahweh do all these things.
okay, very good. So verse 7 says that the Most High, it says that he forms light, creates darkness, he makes peace, and he creates evil. He says, I Yahweh do all of these things. But I'm saying that how are we to understand this verse right here? Because when I think about darkness, darkness is the absence of something. So the way that I have darkness is I take away something so that there could be darkness. The thing that I take away is light. Light is a thing. There's light particles. But darkness is just the absence of those particles. If you don't have the particles there, then there's no light there. I don't know what the substance is that makes up darkness, but we know what the substance is that makes up light. It's a substance. It's something there. So I'm saying that the removal of light lest there be darkness there. And I'm saying that the same thing is true when we think about the idea of evil, where we don't have good, then evil is the thing that is the absence of good. And so, for instance, when we think about the absence of the Most High, who is good and rightness and all of those things, when you have the Most High be removed, then what's left? The absence of those things which are connected to the Most High. And so there you have all of those things. And so if the Most High removes himself from the equations, the thing that you have is evil and chaos and craziness. And so if the Most High takes himself out of the equation, as I'm saying, if he removes himself, then now there's nothing left but things that are not connected to him. And so to me, I feel like there's a difference between the Most High making somebody do this or that or him turning, like how he talks about turning his face from you. And we think about the idea of the Most High turning his face towards you, allowing for his light to shine on you and dwell in and with you, or when you're in not in his good graces, where he turns his face away, he removes his countenance from you leaving. If he removes his light, he leaves nothing but darkness. And so again, we think about the idea of the Most High creating evil. I'm saying, how do we create evil? Lest we talk about him just removing himself from the situation, allowing for these things to just be, because he's not a part of it. And so when I think about the idea of the Most High strengthening the heart of Pharaoh, to me, the same thing could be said is the idea of him not softening it. Right? If he's not softening it, he's hardening it. He's not dealing with him in that way where he just leaves them to his own devices. We think about when we think about how it talks about in Romans 1, let's see, I think it's verse 8, verse 28 actually. What does, oh yeah, that's it right there, 1 and 28. What does that say?
It says, even as they did not think it worthwhile to possess the knowledge of Elohim, Elohim gave them over to a worthless mind to do what is improper.
Okay, so King James, I think, says a reprobate mind. So when you think about these people who are doing all this wickedness over here and all of this unnatural doings that they're doing, having these or verse 27 talks about leaving the natural relations with women and doing all of these backwards things, right? Where over here it says Elohim gave them over to their reprobate or worthless mind. He allowed them just to be in their wickedness. He didn't seek to soften their stony hearts. All right. Even when we think about the idea of a stony heart, right? We think about the idea of the spirit indwelt into the man, where it talks about the idea of taking your heart of stone, your hard heart, and making your heart of flesh. Right? Your heart is softened by the presence of the Most High in it. That's what we see over there when we look in Ezekiel 36, where it talks about the spirit going into you and causing that heart of stone to be turned to a heart of flesh. Your heart becomes softened by the presence of the Almighty. So if it's hardened, it's just not softened. What's the difference? What's the difference? Right? It's the same, you saying the same thing. So I'm saying that the Most High is able to allow for Pharaoh just to be who Pharaoh is by not softening his heart and just allowing him just to be this, this stony hearted individual and not let the people go over and over again. Because for me, when we look at this and we think about this idea, I'll go back over to Exodus. For me, it's the only way that I could really think about such things in terms of the way that the Most High deals. If he simply if he's making, I'm saying if he's outside of the will of the individual, forcing the will of an individual, I don't understand that action. To allow one to exhibit their own personal will is one thing, but you know forcing someone to not to go against their own will, like as if to say he wanted to let them go. He wanted to let them go, but the Most High said, you can't want to let them go. You could.
What if his purpose for being on earth was for that moment?
I believe it was his purpose. The scripture tells you that is his purpose. But I'm saying that his purpose is based on foreknowledge. It's based on the fact that he don't want to be on the right side of the Most High. He don't want to choose to do what's pleasing to the Almighty.
But I'm saying, what if he was created?
Well,
not
he was
to do.
He obviously
not
was.
to choose the Most High.
He was created for that.
Okay. Because what the scripture I was thinking of, can't remember where the scripture is, but it's when the disciples asked to Yeshua, what sins did this man's family commit that made him the way he is?
Yeah.
And he said, none. He said, he's like this so that I can heal him and get to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
So it's like some things are happening just for
his purposes. But I'm saying all things are happening for
right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm saying it's not outside of the individual will of the individual. Just like we look at Judas, what his claim to fame is being Judas. Right? But the Most High knew that he was going to be somebody who's going to be with these people and seem as if he was a faithful individual. But when the rubber met the road, he wasn't that person. But we needed that to happen for the ball to get rolling, for Yeshua to get up on his torches day. So was he created for that purpose? Yes. But did he work outside of his own personal will? I don't see that. I see that he worked inside of his own will. Like he was just a wishy-washy guy.
I mean, this going on to this day is, from person, what I'm saying? I'm sure, people were, wanting to let people go from slavery, and then you had people who didn't. People saw the wrong, saying this is wrong, and then there were those who like, oh no, this is right.
People saying this right to this day.
Yeah, to this day, like, man, they need to go back into slavery. Yeah, so man's heart is wicked. You know what I'm saying? And I believe that, they say all things work together for the good, and that I believe the Most High creates some individuals just for the purpose of doing something real wicked.
Yeah, I'm saying that.
Yeah.
I'm saying that. But I'm saying that he's using that wicked person, and he's using their will, that they willfully are wicked like that, for his purposes.
To get the results that
he's
expecting to happen.
Yeah, that he basing on his foreknowledge. He knows that person's wicked.
Yeah.
Already, he knows what they're going to do. And he knows if he don't soften them up, they gonna keep on doing that. Yeah. But I'm just saying that him not softening is heartening.
Yeah, it's harder than that person.
because he never softened
You
it.
know, you have to, yeah, you're right, because literally, if the Most High wouldn't have did something in me, I would still be out there. I'd probably be dead by now. I'd probably be dead or, in prison for many years. So yeah, I would absolutely be doing the same thing that felt good to my flesh. If it wasn't for him, you know, changing me from the inside, I would still be, so. But then I guess he knew, absolutely knew that, yeah,
You gonna get it.
He did it just to maybe get the belief in the Israelites for them to believe after he let them go. So maybe because if he didn't, if he wouldn't have done that, who knows how they would have been. Would just let them.
Well, I guess when you think about Israel as a whole, it really got to do with Abraham, because he made a promise to Abraham that his seed was going to be great. So it's almost like the Moses said, we find out through the prophecies of Moses that Israel is going to go astray and be cut off and be out here like we are right now. But in spite of all of that, because of the promise that he already made, he said he's still gonna have a people that's Israel. We just go and do some things on the in between, right? But I'm just saying, in terms of this whole idea of the hardening, for me, other people might have different ideas, but for me, when I look at this, he chooses those that's on the outside the same way that he chooses those that's on the inside, based on what he knows of those individuals. The same thing that's true for the chosen in Romans 8 and 28, whatever that verse we looked at, is the same thing that's true for those that's on the outside, is that what makes the distinction is the fact that he knows what you'll choose, knowing that this Pharaoh, he gave him over to his own reprobate mind and just let him do his thing for his glory. Let's see.
A lot of people throw that verse up, like, see, I think there was some Satanists saying that our God is the devil because look at this stuff. He's hardened his heart and creates evil.
I mean, here, this is one more verse here. Let me.
Exactly. He
It's
controls
like
the
a
whole
chess
game.
game.
It's
Yeah,
his
it's
game.
like, it's his game. It's like, I move this, I'm expecting this to happen.
Right.
But it doesn't happen the way I want, I'm gonna move this piece. It really seems like it's like a chess.
You can't be the most high if you don't control the whole game.
I mean, it's like having a child. I mean, sometimes, you gotta set things up for a child to understand not to do certain things and whatnot. Sometimes you let them fall,
Exactly,
so they can learn from what it feels like to fall.
Here, what's this verse say here?
Isaiah 19:2. It says, "And I shall stir up the Mizrahites against Mizrahites, and they shall fight, each one against his brother, and each one against his neighbor, city against city, reign against reign."
Yeah. Oh, 3:2, 3.
It says, "And the spirit of Mitzrayim shall vanish within them, and I destroy their counsel, and they shall seek the idols and the mutterers, the mediums, and the sorcerers."
Okay, again, so it for me, I feel like it don't matter which verse I look at. Is that if I think about this in the idea of the Most High removing himself from a situation, It's just like algebra. The formula always works. If the Most High removes himself, who's order, if he removes order from the situation, what's left is chaos.
So we're saying he removes himself. That's the presence of Satan, the absence of him.
Well, I'm not saying that Satan is the antithesis of the Most High. I'm saying that evil is the antithesis of good, and
Right.
darkness is the antithesis of light.
Right.
And so, if we're gonna enter Hasatan into the situation, we would just say that Hasatan would just be the manifestation of evil, because
His imagination.
we can't put all evil on the shoulders of Hasatan, right? Because man is intrinsically evil, in and of itself. I don't gotta sit up here and teach these little babies wickedness. I gotta teach them righteousness. But as soon as they want something that they ain't supposed to have, who taught them how to sneak and get it? Satan didn't teach them how to sneak and get it. Just their own carnal mind taught them how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They're just the simple fact of
Their
being
lust and desires.
Yeah, that's it. And so that's just something that's inside of you, less your relationship with the Most High gets fortified. And so I'm saying that again.
So you saying if you don't got a relationship with the Most High, you got Satan in you.
Well,
Or
I'm not.
Satan has rule or control over you.
He's
Or
like
something.
breeding ground for
Uh,
it to happen.
I'm not saying that you got Satan in you. I'm saying that you got evil in you. And
Wickedness.
What's the difference then?
well,
Satan.
I'm just saying that I'm not saying that like Satan is like the god of evil and he like everything that. I'm just saying that he is the propagator of evil, but I'm not saying that Satan is the antithesis of the Most High. He's not like the opposite. It's not like you got the Most High or Satan.
Satan didn't create evil.
Well, yeah, we saw that the Most High created evil, but I'm just saying within my algebraic formula.
Yeah, it's true.
That the removal of goodness leaves evil.
Well, so if you create, he gave us the commandments, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you break them, that's evil.
Yeah.
So just by creating the right way, the opposite going the other way is
the absence of that.
Exactly. So
I'm just not saying that Satan is like the anti-Elohim. He is just the main propagator of those things which are contrary to the Almighty. So I'm saying that you don't gotta have Satan in you in order to be wicked and evil. You could just be regular. And
that's the thing. Like,
but in that what happened was like since Adam and Eve we went all sin because of everything that occurred.
Well, yeah, with they're a separate, but even in that, it's just dealing with a separation from the Most High, because there's there's a thing that came out by I think like August. I think Augustine's the one who created the idea of original sin. He's one of those people from like the 200s or something like that, where when you're born with like sin in your body. And then as a human being, you got sin in you, and then you make other human beings, and the sin just is in you as like a thing. But if that's the case, then you can't remove Yeshua from that. you can't remove Yeshua from that because he was a human being. So you're gonna say that the scripture tells us that Yeshua was without sin.
It wasn't he born with the Holy Spirit out of the womb?
But he was still like a human being. Like he didn't have an earthly father, but he had an earthly brother. So I'm saying that just by the simple fact of him being a human being,
Well, he ain't like us then. He ain't have no father, so we already at disadvantage if he wasn't born exactly like him.
Well, the scripture said that he was like us in that he endured temptation and he didn't sin. But even in that verse, it's saying that the way that he was like us was that he endured temptation and didn't sin. And so the thing that makes you sinner is by you not enduring the temptation or giving into the temptation, not by the fact of you being a human being. So I'm saying the idea of original sin is an idea that this person made up that's not true. And you can see it in babies as to where they want to do a thing that's a sin and then they do it, which makes them a sinner. A baby just being born, if it didn't break no laws, how's it a sinner? It's a sinner once it sins. But the thing is that it will sin because it's been separated from the Most High. That's what happened, is separation from the Almighty with the garden. And then we got to get our way back through Yeshua. And so because of the fact that we've been separated, we're kind of on this kind of a downward spiral until we get reconnected. And where I don't got to sit up here and teach no babies wickedness.
Which will be in their spirit already. Because so they're going to have the same spirit.
Yeah, it's in there. Well, I'm saying it's in your carnality because sin is just you trying to feed your flesh. Right. It's just you wanted to serve what's right for your own self. That toy should be mine. That's where it starts at. Sin starts with a toy. That toy should be mine. It don't matter that it's really yours. I'm declaring that it's mine, even though it's yours. And then it gets stolen. Right? And then you sit up there sneaking, trying to not let somebody. Nobody got to teach you that because it's just your carnal flesh, your desire to have things.
But they do love wickedness too.
Hmm?
They do love wickedness too.
Oh, yeah. Then now it gets intensified. But I'm just saying on a basic level, as far as like, I want this and it's yours, but I don't care. I deserve everything. Everything belongs. Yeah, it's just all about selfishness.
But I guess going back, that occurred because of the sin that first happened, and leaving everything.
Yeah, but I'm saying that at his root.
The world we live in now.
I'm saying, but at his root, what is it that we're talking about? We're talking about the Most High not being in the equation. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's it at his root. Now, if he's in this equation now, I don't give in to these carnal desires, and that's what we see as Yeshua though. But he still was a human being though. But I'm saying all that just to say that Satan is like the perpetuator. He's like the politician, and his agenda is evil.
Great advertiser
of evil.
Initiator.
He's an initiator. He's the
antagonist.
All of that of evil. But I'm not saying that he is evil. He's just a propagator of evil. I mean, I'm saying he is evil.
Yeah.
He's evil. He's like
doing evil.
He's evil, but I'm saying like there can be evil without say Hasatan. That's all I'm saying.
God created both, and just
that's his agenda.
That's just his agenda.
That's what he's into. Okay. All that just to say that um, the hardening of Pharaoh's heart, which, you know, there's many chapters to come, which we'll have to revisit the idea of the hardening of Pharaoh's heart, because this is just the Most High saying that it will be done, and then we have chapters later where it actually is done. But I wanted to touch on one other thing, is that if we look at, let's see, can we get 22 down through 26? Here, let me pull the chapter back up again.
It says, and you shall say to Pharaoh, thus said Yahweh, Yisrael, my son, my firstborn. And I said, say unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay my son, even my firstborn. And it came to pass, by the way, in the end, and my bad, I'm on a different version here. Verse 23. So I say to you, let my son go to serve me, but if he refuses to let him go, see, I am killing your son, your firstborn. And it came to be on the way in the lodging place that Yahweh met him and sought to kill him. And Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and threw it at his feet and said, you indeed a bridegroom of blood to me. So he let him go. And he said, you are a bridegroom of blood because of the circumcision.
Okay, very good. So we see over here in 22 where the Most High talks about Israel as my son, my firstborn, which gives you the idea about the purpose of Israel, and also the fact that the reason that Israel's coming, I mean that the Most High's coming for Israel in Egypt. The fact that Israel is the rightful son of the Most High, and he's coming back for his son, who's currently in the possession of Pharaoh. And then also we see in 23, we see, you know, this whole idea of the killing of the firstborn, which we will see ends up being the actual price that's paid for the firstborn, which gives you again the idea of redemption. So when we look at you know these verses and the things that's to be said to Pharaoh, again, it's reiterated that Israel is the rightful son of the Most High, but at this particular time, Israel's in the possession of Pharaoh, which of course needs to be rectified. And so we see the necessity for deliverance, the necessity for redemption with Israel from Pharaoh. And of course, you know, when we think about this from a spiritual perspective, when we think about even in what we was just talking about, we think about the idea of the condition of man outside of the Most High, the fact that until from a spiritual perspective we've been redeemed, we're in the same situation over here where we're being possessed by a controller that's not the rightful owner, and we need to be returned back to our rightful place. You know, just like we see with Israel from Egypt. But I wanted to look at this 24 in 20, 24, 25, and 26, which is really like this kind of parenthetical uh, interruption. When we see over here where Moses on his way, right? On his way, where it says Yahweh met him and sought to kill him. Moses? Y'all was just cool like a second ago. And then now he about to get killed by the Most High. But again, when we think about this, the state of Moses, and we think about his actual journey in terms of his, his growth, we see that obviously there must have been a thing that Moses neglected in doing in regards to his son. Well, he had two sons, but it's only talking about one of them. In regards to circumcision, right? So we see that obviously, the time had come and gone for Moses to have had his son be circumcised, and he wasn't. And so, he's about to get judged out here on his way to go and be a deliverer for the people because of the fact that he neglected to take care of this thing over here. And so it's just interesting. We look at this with Moses, the lawgiver, by the way. We look at Moses over here with the situation where he neglected to take care of this essential thing, where the Most High is ready to kill him, even though he's on the way to go do the work of the Most High. And so to me, when I look at this again, it just adds to the other things that we see in this chapter in terms of this idea of Moses kind of going through this kind of almost from a spiritual perspective, kind of just infancy, where he's we see him growing from being this person who's showing us this doubt and this unsurety and this and over here this this I don't know what it was that caused him to not want to do what needed to be done in regards to his son over here, but it was obviously something that was known. It wasn't like he didn't know about doing it because the wife, right, she did it, right? So it's almost, I don't know if he's putting the thing off or he just was refusing for whatever reason or what have you, but she knew that it was supposed to have been done and that it wasn't done. And the reason why we have this verse 24 over here, she had to have known, right? If we can let it sit up here and see where it says that Yahweh met him and sought to kill him, and then the very next thing is that she's going up here and taking care of the situation. It's like she knew what to do in order to stop the death sentence. But in order to know what to do, it had to be something that they was neglecting to do in the first place. But I just thought that it was interesting. Again, when we look at Moses and we think about Moses, who, the Most High says, later, other people, he'll talk to other people, and they gotta have interpretations for what they talked about. But with Moses, he speaks face to face. Right? There wasn't a man that was walking around that was closer to the Most High than Moses. But even in that, we see that there was a process for Moses. And chapter 4 really is a clear indication of that process. We see multiple examples of things that Moses was lacking in. Even when we get to this place, verse 24, where he's ready to get taken out of here because of not doing the will of the Most High. Okay. All right. So that being said, let's finish up the chapter here, 27 through 31.
Then Yahweh said to Aaron, "Go to meet Moshe in the wilderness." And he went and met him on the mountain of Elohim and kissed him. Moshe told Aaron all the words of Yahweh, who had sent him, and all the signs which he had commanded him. And Moshe went to Aaron and gathered together all the elders of the children of Israel. And Aaron spoke all the words which Yahweh had spoken to Moshe. Then he did the signs before the eyes of the people, and the people believed. And they heard that Yahweh had visited the children of Israel, and that he had looked on their affliction, and they bowed their heads and did obeisance.
Okay, so when we look over here, right, it just says that he did the signs for the people. Right, so when he did the signs, it just seemed like that's just what we just looked at, the 3 signs over there, right?
He did pull it out.
Yeah, so it's not like we know later that there's other things that happen with the blood and with the snake thing, but over here, when he asked the Most High, he said, "Let me have these signs to show the people," and then we get down to the where it says that showed them the signs. Seems like we just got to assume that it was the 3 signs, even though it don't talk about it. But again, we get to the bottom, and it says that the people believed. Right? That was the whole point of them going through all of this in the first place. The people believed. And then so, we just have to be able to understand that believing is something that happens in your current situation. That's your present status, is believing. It's not something that you did once do before, and then it was back then over there, right? Believed, right? Believing is something that we must always be doing, right? Continuing actually is believing. Continuing is faith. Continuing is, what is required of us in this walk. We have to always continue to trust in the Almighty. We couldn't say, well, yesterday I trusted in the Most High, or last year, or whatever, or however many years ago it was that you decided that Yeshua was your savior, right? I believed way back then. You have to always continue in that believing, because again, we see this is a clear example when we look at chapter 4, where the thing that caused Moses to even say that he was going to be the one to go and do the thing, we get to the next chapter, there's already doubt involved, right? We see that this believing thing is something that we just have to always be doing. We have to always be trusting and being firm in what Yeshua has already done for us, and then also what we know that he said that he was going to be doing for us now and in the future. And so, when we look at this, it's a good help for us to be able to get that understanding that that this whole idea of believing, is a constant. It's a constant thing. It's a never ending thing. Like when we are in this faith, it's a thing that's perpetually going on until we get to that place of meeting our maker, right? Okay, that being said, do we have any questions, comments about any of this stuff that we talked about today? All right, so that being said, for now, we will be done with this look at Exodus chapter 4. Y'all want next week, we'll come back and see what else we can gain from the Torah portion. And so, for now, we will say then, Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.